I got the first coat of poly spray on yesterday. Now a coat of poly spray is actually two coats. We go this way once and then this way once. That makes one coat. Well, I put that on yesterday in the early afternoon. The instructions say then to leave it for a while to put the second coat on, or between coats. I do one coat in the morning and one coat in the evening or afternoon. Well, anyway, I got the first coat on, then I come up here last night and I was trying to decide whether I was going to put the second set of coats on or not, but it was late. I didn't really want to do it, but I got to looking at it and I really wasn't very happy with all the nibs and nubs and stuff on here, all of the debris that had picked up in there. Now the instructions say to put two coats on, two cross coats on, let those set up, and then sand it down with a light sanding to get all of the humps and bumps and stuff out of it. But I got to looking at it and I couldn't stand it, so I went over it with some 400 grit sandpaper last night and kind of knocked it down a little bit. I come up here early this morning and took a broom and swept out in here, and then took the air nozzle and blew everything off, blew everything out, cleaned it up again, washed it down with some Repsol, some Acryliclean, and I let it sit for a while with sucker on over there, with the air sucker on, hopefully to get most of the crap out of here so we don't pick so much stuff up. But there's so much static on this thing that it just sticks. Stuff just gets drawn to it. I've got a cable attached to it out to a ground. I was hoping that would dissipate some of the static, but I don't know whether it's doing me much good or not. Anyway, I'm ready to put my second coat on here. Actually, like I said, it'll be two coats. It'll be a cross coat. I'm ready to spray that on. I got it mixed up in here. Well, I got my abominable snowman suit on now. I'll go put my mask on and get everything ready and go start squirting some paint on there. I had to spend a couple minutes here mixing up the paint because all of the solids all dropped out of it. All the aluminum just dropped out of it. That's pretty common. That aluminum is heavier than the paint. So, oh yeah, I still got to get my mask and stuff on. I got to keep shaking the paint gun up while we're using it too. All right, my mask is going on now. I'm done talking for a while. Well, I got the first half of the first coat done. Now I gotta do the cross coat on it. Just come in here and took the gun apart. I had a little bit of paint left over, a little bit of poly spray left over in the container, and then I had enough left in my mixing containers that I could fill that container back up again. I got it set up and stoppered up over here. Mix up some more poly spray so that I've got it ready to go, and I'm letting that stuff set for a little bit before I put the next coat on. Just let it flash off a little bit. It doesn't have to be too long, but long enough that it tacks up enough that the second coat doesn't run. I'll take the paint stick and stir it back up again, get it stirred up. And that's what I was doing with these containers that I've got it mixed in. As soon as I come in here to fill my paint cup back up on the gun, I'll just mix it back up again before I dump it in there. Now, yesterday I didn't do that, and I wound up with a lot of aluminum solids down at the bottom of my mixing containers when I was done at the end of the day. This time, my mixing containers are pretty much clean. Well, this gallon on a poly spray is getting low here. I'll have used almost 1 gallon just on this one side here for the 2 cross coats. Wonder maybe I should take that other gallon back down there to the shop and put it on the mixer again while I'm waiting for this to dry. Yeah, that empties my can out. Almost got a little bit left in the bottom, but not much. And I'll probably have some of this left over to put back in the can when I'm done. All in all, I haven't used a complete gallon of reducer yet. Although I did. The first bit I did with the poly brush, I did run through 1 can of reducer. I forgot about that. But that was only a partial can when I started. That was one that had already been used. Well, I did. I have opened a second can of reducer. And I'm going to need a new can of Acryliclean because I just emptied out that. But I've been using that for a long time. I used that 1 can of Acryliclean on the whole other wing, all the associated parts that I did with it, as well as some other stuff, some powder coating and things like that that I've done. All right. All right, that thing went pretty good, I think. I took a little extra, sprayed on some of these spots. There's a few places where I used the iron last night on there to put down some places where it popped up and stuff. Looks like I might have to do it again here on this grommet that goes around this aileron pulley. But all in all, that looks pretty doggone good. Now, I might have solved my fuzzies problem on there. I don't know. I cleaned this place out a dozen times now. I was still getting fuzzies on it yesterday, and it had a lot of static on it. I put a cable on there on my rotating mount over there and out to ground, hoping that would do it, but that really wasn't working. So I moved my cable and attached it right here to where it attaches onto the wing, on the wing struts. And that seemed like it might have solved the static problem. I don't know, but I didn't see one little bit of stuff get put on there this time on this spray. Whether I got it all out of here finally, which I doubt, or whether I solved the static electricity problem, which is more likely. But anyway, I'm happy with that. That looked really good. There's still going to be some work to do on it. I got a couple of spots. Here's I don't know whether that popped up or not. It might not. Just discolored right there. I thought maybe that seam or that tape had popped a little bit, but might be just discolored a little bit. Anyway, I'll have to inspect that, and we'll go over it with the sandpaper again. This coat gets sanded again, and then we get another coat on top of this one. The final coat goes on top of this one. But I'm going to go ahead and let this side dry up this time, and then I'll get some help and turn the wing over and do 2 coats on the bottom side. Do the bottom side just the same way I did the top side here. We'll see what happens with the bottom side, whether I need to sand between the first coat and the second coat or not. But anyway, that looks really good. So I'm going to go clean my gun up. I'll throw this away. Now in a high volume professional shop or something, they might have changed these out on every time. I don't know. I can't really do. I guess I've got lots of this stuff here now. I had 2 refills as well as the one that give me the container and the cap that goes on it. But I just been opening that up and refilling this little container when I'm doing this, but I can just throw it away now instead of cleaning it out. It's cleaning the cup out, so that's good. So I'll go ahead and take my gun out, clean it out, throw this away, and then I'll let this set up for a while, a few hours here now while I go do something else. I'll come back in and change my clothes after I get my gun cleaned up. When I started here on the top of this wing, it was nice and bright silver. Actually, it was aluminum because the poly spray is exactly the same stuff as everything else we were putting on, the same as the poly tack, the same as the poly brush. It's a pure liquid vinyl with aluminum powder mixed in with it. And the recommendation was to put 2 coats of poly spray on over the poly brush and then sand it down and then put a 3rd coat over the top of that. And if you sanded too much of the first 2 coats, then you'd want to put another coat on top of that or more on top of that. The whole idea there is that the aluminum acts as a UV protectant, as a light protectant. So it protects the fabric from the UV radiation and prolongs the life of the fabric. So I put the first coat of poly spray on, and then I noticed that there were a few pinked edges lifted up on it and a few spots where the tape's kind of lifted a little bit. So I went over it with the iron, and then I went over it and sanded it down and got it smoothed out. Then I put the second coat of poly spray on top of that, went over it again, looking for any other problem spots. And I found a couple that lifted again or that I missed the first time, sanded it down some more, and then put the third coat on. So I did 2 coats first. I did one side 2 coats and the other side 2 coats and did the finish work on those. I finished the bottom side last night with the third coat, and then I come over and flipped it over today, this morning, and did the top side with the third coat. And then I just now put the Polytone on it. Now Polytone is exactly the same stuff as all the rest of it. It just has a white pigment in it, or pigment in it. You can get it in any color. You can get it in green or purple or blue or red, yellow. I've got several gallons of Cub Yellow in here that a guy gave me that I haven't used, and this happens to be Insignia White. So the difference is in the pigments in it. In the Poly Tack, there's no pigment in it, and it's pretty thick. The Poly Brush has pink pigment in it, plus it has an antifungal agent and a flame-resistant agent in it. The Poly Spray has a powdered aluminum in it, and then the Polytones have tones in it. The Poly Spray, when I was done with it, it could have been a finished coat. That would have been all I needed to do to protect it from the elements, from the weather, from the sun. But I'm going to put some polyurethane paint on it to match the rest of the airplane, which I could have put over the Poly Spray, but it would have taken several coats of the yellow over the top of that to start getting the light color and stuff. So by putting a white Polytone on here, then that gives me something vibrant that the yellow will pop out of, and I won't need to do as many coats on it. And I did 1 coat with the Polytone one way, and then I went over with a cross coat, and I probably didn't even need to do the cross coat. The 1 coat was probably enough because it just gives that white background, but now it's got a pretty solid white background. If I was going to use this as my finish color, I'd probably go over it with at least 1 more coat of Polytone. It looks pretty good the way it is. It's going to look even better once I get the yellow on there. So I'm going to let this sit here and dry overnight, and then I'm going to roll the wing over tomorrow and work on the other side. And I've got a little bit of stuff to do on it. I noticed when I got finished with it, with the Poly Spray on it, that there's 2 or 3 spots on there that are little pinholes in it that just can't get covered. I don't know whether there's, it looks like there might be some contamination in there in a couple spots. So I'm going to have to work on those, clean those up, and then bring the Poly Spray back up on that. Then I can go ahead and put the Polytone on them. So I'm going to get the heater out now, turn that fan off, close the door, close everything up, and let it sit overnight. So I make sure the heater's out here in the open away from this plastic and not pointing at the wing. I put it away when I'm painting and stuff, get it out of the way so it doesn't pick up paints, and so there's no chance of an explosion or anything. Well, I got everything all put away, so I guess I'll go ahead and turn that fan off and get the door closed up. Get out of here for the night. It's 8 o'clock, so wife will put her chickens to bed now, go sit and visit for a little while, and say goodnight to her. Well, I'm done spraying poly material on the wing now. I got the coat of white here on the bottom. That's all finished. I just put 1 coat on. It's not a complete coat. I didn't do a complete cross coat on it. I did the cross coat from that end down here to this end down here on the wingtip, and then from on the other side I only have to do half of it at once. Then I had some paint left over, so I went ahead and did it back and forth from the wing root down there down to the wingtip here, but I only had enough to do on the aft portion of the wing from the wing root down about halfway. Then I run out down there just before I got to where the wing strut's attached to it. But yeah, that's plenty good enough. That's more than good enough for what I need. I just need a background for the yellow paint. The next painting I'll do on that will be with the PPG polyurethane paint on there, the yellow, so we can match it up. So if I was going to leave it white like this, or maybe put stripes on it or something else and leave the dominant color white, I'd go ahead and mix up another batch of white and put another coat on both the top and the bottom here. But this is good enough for the background for the yellow. Well, now this has got to sit and outgas, make sure all the solvents and everything are evaporated out of it for 4 or 5 days before I put the yellow on it. Now there's a few more things that I can do to it before then. I've got some grommets to put on, some leather grommets to put on. I've got 2 to put on down there
where the jury struts attach, and then one I've got to make to put here where the new tie-down bracket is, and then I've got two to put on where the penetration's in the bottom of the wing for the aileron cables. Then I can turn it over, and I'm going to make up one for where the upper aileron cable control rod touches onto the false bar back there where it attaches to the aileron control horn. That kind of bangs there and stuff, so I'm going to make a patch to go on there. I've got some vinyl to cut out patches for those, so that'll be the next thing I'll do. Those all get glued on with Polytack, and I could do those after I painted the wing, but I want the Polytack will bond in with the poly that's already on there, whether it's the poly brush and polytone and poly spray and all of that stuff. It's all one, so the Polytack will actually melt into that stuff and bond right in. Put it on the polyurethane, the finish coat paint, then it's just bonded to the finish coat paint and it's more likely to peel off. The other thing I can do is I can clean up the Vortex generators. I can lay those out on there too. I could go ahead and glue those down to this, and then I could just paint them. What I did before is I painted the wing, and then I cleaned up all of that other stuff and painted it and then glued it on. Anyway, that's the next thing I can do. I can unmask all this stuff, take the masking tape and masking off all of this stuff, because when I do the yellow, we'll do the finish color on everything. Anyway, it looks pretty darn good, I think. It would look pretty good white if we had a white airplane, but we still got work to do on it. My wife said she got a call last night, I guess, or the day, from the mechanic, and he's planning on being here the end of this week, so we'll start on the annual on the airplane the end of this week. We'll see where we go from there.